So I really enjoyed this chapter, and if this is going to be like the climate of the culling game, I'm totally on board with it. I mean, I'm not expecting every single match is going to have like its own unique like gimmick to it, but if there's more to it than just this, we have a lot to look forward to. And I said this in my spoilers video for this chapter, but this reminds me of like chapter Black Arc Yu Yu Hakusho, like in the best way. And not just this chapter, but just like the arc in general, like the civilians developing abilities suddenly, and some of them being rather powerful, and the main cast, having to interact with them and having to fight them in unconventional ways that basically nerf them. And all of the training and all of the abilities and all the strength that they've developed up until this point is basically useless, and they have to play this elaborate game. And when that's done correctly, I think it's so much fun and could be one of the highlights of that particular series. And I think we're actually seeing that here. So it starts off with a twist, and Higuruma instantly goes into his domain expansion called Deadly Sentencing. And I think most of us were just simply waiting for his curse technique reveal, but no, it's just going right into the domain expansion, and it's pretty amazing. But it's also something that we're not really used to, because most of the domain expansions that we've seen up until this point are like the fantastical ones that have like the curse technique guaranteed hits and all that stuff. So this is a welcomed nice change of pace. And we'll see that, one of the main rules here is that violence is forbidden for both of them. So Yuji isn't able to attack him and gets teleported back to his area. So then we're getting a name reveal on Higuruma's curse stand thing here, and it's Judge Man. Judge Man is nigh omniscient or something, because it apparently knows everything about everyone inside the domain. And that makes me wonder, how far does it go? If Sukuna or Kenjaku or Tengen were inside of this domain, would it know everything about them? And it's also able to generate tangible evidence that it was somehow able to take from the security cameras of this pachinko hall that's going to be involved in this trial. So on paper, this is one of the most powerful curses or just domains that we've ever seen. And I say curses because this thing seems to be a separate entity from Higuruma altogether. Because, he's referring to it as a name, but he also doesn't share knowledge with it. So it's possible that this curse technique that he has, or domain expansion or whatever, might allow him to summon this curse that might just exist. It could be similar to Megumi's Ten Shadows technique, as to where he uses curse technique to summon those beings. I'm not exactly sure, and it hasn't been confirmed yet. I'm just, speculating. But anyway, I guess it randomly picks one of the instances in your life where you broke man's law. And for Yuji, it picked this one instance where he illegally went into a pachinko parlor, because he's underage. And just like in our own court, the verdict depends on essentially what Yuji says. And that's ultimately what it comes down to, right? You have to say the right things at the right time in order for you to win the court game. I don't want to be too nihilistically meta with you guys, but a trial in court is essentially just a game. But then we're going into this flashback from Tengen, and I guess this is when he was talking to Yuji before he left to go to the culling game with everyone. But some very useful exposition here. So he's saying domains used to be more a common technique for sorcerers in the past. And when he says that, I guess he means the golden age, when Sukuna was in his prime and Kenjaku and all of them were there too. The reason is that many domains now involve deadly can't miss attacks, but they weren't always that way. Like I said, the domains that we're more accustomed to reading the series, they merely force targets inside to obey the curse technique's rules. That's how most domains functioned. And then we get this analogy of a sumo match here. And it makes me wonder, was sumo invented because this one guy developed a domain expansion with those rules in it? Constructing a domain that is meant to be lethal requires immense skill, so the number of users decrease. Then we come back to Yuji real time, and he says that means this domain isn't necessarily fatal and can't physically harm me. Obviously that's true, as that was one of the first rules established. Plus it relies on a binding vow that requires an explanation of the rules. And that's obviously true too, because that's why Higuruma gave that exposition dump, not just for the audience, but because he had to. It was a part of the game of the domain expansion. So then we go further into this trial, and Yuji trying to figure out what the verdict's going to be, and then it's revealed that Higuruma doesn't know himself what the evidence is, and like I said, him and Judge Man don't share knowledge. And then Yuji goes over his options, one, he could just stay silent and don't say anything. That's if the evidence doesn't prove anything, which obviously it does, because it's going to favor Higuruma. This like is his domain expansion after all. It's not supposed to be like a fair trial. And then option 2, he could say he entered, but it was for another reason. And then option 3, he could just, you know, spill the beans and say that he went in there and gambled, essentially admitting guilt. But he decides to go with option 2 and says he went in there to take a dump because he didn't want to pick option 3 because he doesn't know what will happen if he's just straight up guilty. So he'd rather just take a chance. But it turns out the evidence is of course able to prove that he went into the Chinko parlor and played because it shows him at the exchange window, you know, to cash out his earnings. But then Higuruma goes on to say that like gambling in Japan is illegal anyway, and that these parlors are a separate legal case, and that him being underage creates like this weird gray area loophole, and that all he should have said is that he's never seen the pachinko parlor in the first place despite the evidence proving otherwise. But that all doesn't matter because he didn't say the right thing by going with option 2, so now the verdict is guilty, and therefore he gets confiscation, which apparently does something to him, and judging from what Yuji says at the end of the chapter, I guess it makes him unable to control his cursed energy, because that's what he says happened. From the spoilers, it made it seem like his cursed energy was being reduced to 0 or something, but I guess he just lost control of it. But anyway, like now round 2 starts and we get into like the physical fight, and therefore we're seeing Higuruma get physical for the first time, and he like uses his gavel as a weapon, but he can also like increase its size, and also like control it telekinetically and also make it disappear. So pretty cool stuff here. I'm really interested to see how this is going to work out, but also I'm sure this is going to play into Yuji's favor because, you know, him not being able to control his cursed energy is his grassroots. So this could, you know, wind up helping him maybe, or we could see like a new type of technique inadvertently developed here. Like we could see a new version of Divergent Fist, like I don't know, ultra, like super Divergent Fist maybe or something. Hey, if you've made it this far, maybe you'd be interested in following me on Twitter. I'm pretty active on there, and I talk about all the new battle anime and manga stuff going on, all of the new spoilers and big news and releases and all that stuff, as well as just nerd culture and pop culture and topical stuff. Maybe sometimes I'll even try to post some crappy memes too to liven up your timeline. But if Instagram's more your thing, you could also follow me on there too. I'm not as active, but I definitely plan on being more active there starting next year. So yeah, please check out my other social medias. Thanks guys. Not really sure, but let me know what you think about this chapter in the comments. And like I said, I really enjoyed this one. A lot of fun here. If you haven't read this chapter for some reason, please go do that and then come back and watch this video again, please. But anyway, also let me know what you think is going to happen in this fight. I mean, I'm sure Yuji's going to win, but how is he going to win? Do you think Sakuta's going to get involved, or do you think somebody else is going to get involved? Let me know. Or do you think he might even lose and then somebody else just has to save him? Also, if you liked the video, guys, please give it a like and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one.